Let Gray tell us a little bit about herself and about the type of art she's going to show us tonight. Okay, Gray.
Well, I'm Gray Woolard, like she said. I'm originally from Greenville. I've recently, in the past 5 or 6 years, my husband and I moved to Washington, and that's where I got involved with Riverwalk Gallery, where my art is. I'm a dental hygienist by trade, so that probably helps with my fine motor skills with doing these small dots. But I've always enjoyed art. I've always done different things through the years, but this has really become my love. So about 6 years ago, I was looking on Pinterest, and I don't know about you guys, but we're all famous for looking at Pinterest and pinning stuff that we never do. We never cook, we never, follow up on. But I kept seeing these videos, and they weren't tutorials, they were actually videos of people dotting, and I was mesmerized by it. I don't sleep well, so I started noticing if I watched them dot, it actually helped relax me and put me to sleep. So my husband would make fun of me because I'd say, okay, I think I'm gonna go into bed, I'm gonna watch some dotting videos before I go to sleep. So I watched and I just thought, that is so beautiful. I love color, I love texture, and I love the patterns. So I started looking at tutorials, and I started seeing these wonderful artists from all over the country and actually all over the world, but mostly the ones in the United States I followed. And I started watching how they dotted and all the different things they used. And then at that point, it was just becoming popular. So they didn't have all these tools that we can get on Amazon and all of these things. So they used crochet needles because they're different sizes. So I really didn't want to invest. I wasn't really sure that I was going to be able to do it. But I finally found some on Amazon. I ordered a small kit. I picked up some small canvases, and I had tons of paint at home. I thought, I'll try that. Well, these tutorials, I don't follow directions well, so I watch and thought, okay, well, I can do this. And so I would go up into my craft room and I would start to paint and realized it's a little bit harder than I thought it was gonna be, but I was determined. And so I kept on and started figuring out, the paints, the tools, the way to keep my pattern balanced. So that's where I am now 6 years later. So these are some of my pieces. These are some of my original pieces. This piece, is really special to me. It's the first piece I ever did where I actually had multiple mandalas, and that was really hard and very challenging. This will stay in my house forever. I don't think I'd ever let it go. So when I first started, like I said, I started on canvas. Well, everyone was painting rocks at the time. I don't know if you remember, but everybody wanted to paint rocks and hide them and give them to people. And so these artists that I was seeing had these beautiful smooth river rocks. They lived in the Pacific Northwest. They were in all these places where they could find it. We don't have them in Eastern North Carolina. I tried to find rocks. I would check everywhere. I would talk to people, and they were all rough. And when you have a rough surface, you can't dot well on it. So I started researching what I could do about that, and I found a woman in Australia who was making molds to make stones. And so I decided to order that. So I started making my own stones. So all of my stones that I've made through the years have been made with different size molds with dental plaster. And this is how they started.
Dental plaster?
Yeah.
Okay, you're a dental hygienist. I'm not.
Well,
but I put my hands on dental plaster.
Well, you wouldn't have to use dental plaster. You could get any plaster from...
Plaster, any plaster.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
That's just what I started with. Now, before you couldn't really find molds because people weren't doing that. Now with the resins, everybody's doing all the resin art. You can't find molds. You don't have to get them from Australia. But anyway, that's the company that I worked with. So this is how, it starts out like this. After it comes out, I paint it. And then the big thing with dot art is you have to work from a grid. It's not a pattern, it's a grid. And so you can see on this is how all these started out. And I painted the center, but it's on a grid because you have to, if you don't keep your dots and you're lined up, it's just, you're not gonna have a pattern. So there's lots of different ways to do that. So when I started out, I was learning all kinds of different things. I tried everything you can get, all kinds of, I've ordered tons of these things to figure out, how can I find the center, making the circles. I eventually just went to something like this, and it's wonderful. Much easier.
That's a stencil.
It is, but it comes with dotting tools. But yeah, it's a stencil. That's all it is. It gives you the center, and then it gives you the lines to keep straight. The stones, I do order the grids. I ordered them a long time ago from my friend in Australia. So that fits, and that's how I work with those. But you can use anything with these. These are flexible. They go on different. If you wanted to dot on a cup or glass, whatever, you can make your dots that way. So paints. Paints are really important, like they are in any of our, any of the art we do. It doesn't matter how expensive they are. It doesn't matter. It has to be the right consistency. So I've tried all kinds of paints to do this. Some are too thin. Some of your less expensive paints, your acrylic paints are too thin. Your dots, they spread, they run into each other, so that doesn't work well. Your more expensive paints are too thick, and so they don't make a pretty dot. They have a peak on them. So you can take Liquitex, different stuff to mix and get the right consistency. I did all of that, have all that stuff, and then I tried Americana Deco Art. And this paint is perfect for dot art. And 99% of the time, you're gonna get a beautiful dot just straight from the bottle. So these are the paints that I use. I probably have every color that they make.
And are they easily acquired?
Yes.
Okay.
And I would suggest that you not get these from Michael's. They're very expensive at Michael's, but Hobby Lobby has the best price on them, and they have a good assortment. As far as the tools, you can order the tools online. You can get, these came from Michael's, actually get these in bulk to use for my teaching, for my classes. So we have different types that do different things. So, as you can see, each one is a different size. So as you want to make your certain size, that you have the color coded to be able to make different size dots. Makes sense, right? So those are the acrylic rods, but we also have ball stylists. I don't know if y'all are familiar with these. A lot of people use them with clay. Nail artists use them to paint on nails with nail art. These are really easy to find, and they're really important in this type of art because you want to have a pretty dot that, these that are all the same size, but you also want a little bit of difference, and you want to change up what you do as far as the pattern. So you can see, well, I'll show it on this. So the dotting stylists are used to create a larger dot going to a smaller dot, and we call that walking the dots. You just dip it once and you walk it around and it'll decrease in size. So these are the different tools. Now the tools I use are a little bit more expensive. I got these after trying all these other ones, and I like these because they're different size on each end. And so I have a lot of options. I've used these for probably 4 or 5 years, so I know exactly what size I need when I'm going through. When I teach, I do teach from these because, well, for one thing, these aren't color coded, and I don't have them for the students. And this is much easier to teach. And these work great. I mean, there's not a problem at all with them. So that's the paints. So what I'm going to do, I was going to show you guys on a stone that I made, but I think it might be easier if I show you on the canvas because it's larger. Is that good for y'all? Because I know I said I was going to do on a stone, but I think that might work better. So I don't know why I picked what I picked. I just like colors together. I don't know anything about art theory other than what I like. So these are the colors I grabbed to show tonight. So this color, the one thing that you have to remember, you need your paint to be, you don't need it to dry out. So you don't need to fill up too much in here, okay? But you've got to have enough in there to really get a good amount of paint on the end to make a nice, pretty dot. Has anybody dotted before? I know you said you had dotted. Anybody else? You have, okay. Have you done this type of dotting?
I haven't. Mine's a little bit. One glass of wine is one way, 2 glasses of wine is the other way.
Yes, okay. Yeah. I understand. Yeah, I understand. Okay, so I've started with this. I think I'm going to...
Did you buy this like that? Or you painted
So this is just a canvas, and I did paint it black. The reason I used black, now this I did blue, that was kind of an experiment, and that turned out okay, but I found that when I do a background of color, they just don't show up well.
Okay. And
Hey,
you
Nancy.
Hey, what did you do your pattern with there?
Yeah, spider web.
So this is
You did that.
this.
Oh, your stencils.
You missed that part.
Well, I'm sorry, I was trying to be 2 places at once.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here.
And you use pencil.
That's something I left out to tell you guys. Okay, it's a chalk pencil, yes, yes.
Okay.
Okay, and so that's what I use to
And an
make the
old-fashioned
lines.
compass.
Well, yeah.
We used to use those on there.
To make circles in different, yeah. So I use that on some of these to do. This stuff I don't use as much, but this is very cool for making circles, but I don't use it as much as I did. Okay, so we have to make sure that we have plenty of paint. I tell my students, please don't fill that well up with paint. They
What
fill
do
the
they
well up
do?
with paint.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're so excited. I'm like, you don't need that much, but it's okay. You want enough to be able, like I said, to cover the tool, but you don't want, it'll dry out. Baby wipes are your best friend. Well, actually, one of your best friends. These are your other best friend because you're gonna make a mistake. And you can, yeah, and then the pointed ones, because you can get up in there, okay? So, what you have to, so, okay, when we're looking at this grid, and we start our pattern, we're gonna take dots around the center, okay? So we're gonna start on these lines that go here. Yeah, let me get this to the one. So we're gonna start on these lines that go here, okay? The most important part of this whole painting is gonna be making sure your center dot is where it needs to be and the first 2 rows, okay? So what I teach my students, and you gotta make sure that when you're looking at this space between here and here. So I'm gonna start my dots here and here and here and here, and then I'm gonna fill in one in there, okay? I know that didn't make sense when I said that, but it will when I show you. You wanna make sure that you have the right size because you've gotta fit all those dots in there. So I already looked at this and I am going with a 5. Okay, so you're gonna dip in, and what you need to remember is you re-dip for every dot. If you don't re-dip, your dots are not gonna be the same size because you don't have the same amount of paint on them. So you're gonna re-dip every dot and you're gonna take it down and you're just gonna dot, okay? Now you want it close to the center. You want them close to each other, but you don't want them to touch. And I'm gonna go here. Now what I tell my students is we wanna go north, south, east, and west, and that one's off just a bit.
Well, you're gonna have a steady hand.
Well, yeah. And I did have a cup of coffee before I left.
Well, she's
Okay.
a hygienist, yes, so she
Yeah.
used to have a
So
steady
north, south, east, and west, all right? And I could have made that dot, you know what? I think I'm gonna go a little bit bigger. Okay, so north, south, east, and west. Now we're gonna go across because you want your dots to line up straight across. Okay, then I'm gonna go in between there. And I want that to line up here, right there. You see where I'm doing that? And then line up here. And then we're gonna line up here. All right, so when we look at that, can you see how those are lining up? They're not perfect. We're not gonna do it perfect because we're not machines, okay? But we want it close enough so as we go through, like that one's off just a little bit, but it's okay.
Only you will know that when it's finished.
Exactly. Okay, so I have more space in here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put another dot in between. Now, if I'd made bigger dots, you wouldn't do that because they would run together, okay? The dots would be closer together. So I'm just gonna take, and I'm gonna go in here, and I'm gonna go all the way around and fill those in. Now you're gonna take the space in between, okay? And remember, I do not have a pattern, I am just dotting. In between. Now, if you'll notice, I am not pushing this down. It's more like you're kissing the canvas. Just kiss the canvas. Otherwise, if you push it down, you spread the paint out and you don't get a nice dome on your dot.
So what if your dots don't match the same size? Like when you're learning, I mean, it's hard to make
See, that
them
one's a
the
little
same.
close.
Practice.
So, you see, now I got that a little bit close because that dot is off. So, this is a good teaching opportunity.
So do you let it drip? Because one demo I saw, they just took it down and just let it drip on to make it.
So this right here, this dot, see how it's off just a little bit? You see how close that is? Yeah. Okay, teaching moment, I'm not gonna do anything with it. What I would normally do is I would get a Q-tip and I would remove that and fix that. But I'm not gonna do that tonight.
When you're touching the wet paint with a Q-tip, doesn't it tend to smudge or smear?
So you're going to use a lot of these. You would go in and you would roll it. Get it
Ah,
off. Now,
okay.
if you get it when it's wet, most of the time you can get it up.
Okay.
As long as sometimes you can't get it completely up, but you get it smooth enough and you can go back and touch it up with some black paint and then go back and dye.
Okay.
There's lots of ways to fix stuff. Because you're gonna make tons of mistakes. I mean, you know, that's what I did. So y'all see? Now you were asking about how hard okay, I don't drip, but it is a very light, kissing the can. I want to give y'all some, do y'all want to try? Does anybody want to try that? To see that's, because I'll be glad to let y'all try if anybody wants to. I'll pull out a piece of paper and y'all can see if you want to do that in a little while. So, all right, so we need another color. Let's see what I'm going to do here. Okay, so now I'm going to look and I'm going to figure out where do I want to put another. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a dot directly in the middle here. Okay? So I've got a lot of space. That's too big. That is a size 12. So let's go with an 11. And I'm going to put a dot in between there. Okay? We're going to go in there. Now, you got to make sure you have enough paint, and you look at the tip. You see where I have the paint on there? It's like a little nipple on there. See how much paint I put on there? There you go.
See, your ends are flat. The ones I saw are rounded.
The what?
There was a dotting kit on Amazon, that tool that was rounded.
You have one that's round.
So we're going to go all the way around. And you see how I'm not pushing it down? So if I were to push it down, and I'm not going to do it,
But it would spread.
it would spread, and what you would have in the middle. Now, some of these are going to spread anyway, just because of consistency. In between.
So years ago, there was something called puff paint.
Yeah.
That you would do on like sweatshirts.
I remember doing that.
And so you could do similar things like that to like offset your iron-on. So see how I put the dot on the top? Okay, you got to make sure that when you put that dot, now if you're on a line, you have the line to help you. But if you don't, you've got to line it up so you're centered. Don't just start doing it without turning your canvas or whatever you're working on, because I promise you that dot is not going to be at the top when you do that. It's an interesting red. Okay, so I'm going to start here, and I'm going to line it up, and I'm going to put a dot there. And you see it's not going to be lined up with that dot because that one's wrong. Plus, it's hard.
I know.
It's the little red-headed stepchild. There's Waldo.
You see how I'm lining those up? Dots look like they're on top. If they're not, you're
They
going to
look
fix them.
great to
It's
me.
getting so pretty, yeah.
So now we're going to walk the dots. So when you put, so this dot has got to be bigger. You want it to be bigger, otherwise it's not going to look right. And you also want to take these dots and hug that that larger dot. If you don't, it's just going to look random. It's not going to look like it's part of this petal. Okay. So I'm going to take the smaller end. These have two different. I'll use the bigger end. Now I'm going to use the smaller end. And I'm going to go right down here. Can y'all see? And I'm going to walk them down. Oh yeah. Did you see how I did that?
Oh,
Yeah, isn't that something? Because
So
the amount of paint
go,
diminishes.
gradually.
Did them around.
Gradually goes down smaller and
Yeah, it's so fine. Now what you don't want to do, if you have a really large area, and you
That's by the
walking it. It's just by redotting. So
Okay.
you're redotting each time. That's why you have to, if you want dots to be the same size, you have to redip every dot.
each time. Gotcha.
If you want them to decrease in size, then you're going to only dip once, okay?
Because the amount of paint gets less and less.
Yeah, and I was going to say, you do one side, but how do you do the other side?
Hold on.
You redip it and put it in the middle, and you redip it.
Now, I count,
Count number of
but but I count in my mind because I count. But I don't make, you do not have to make each side the same number of dots. So now we're gonna go down this side, and I'm gonna go just below. I'm gonna go around. Okay, see that one's off. You don't necessarily have to count them. I just count in my head, but I don't count as far. I just go what fits in there. A lot of people get caught up in the counting.
I get caught up in the count. I used to think I had a lot of patience. Guess what?
No.
You don't think so? A little bit bigger to start. So I'm gonna go right above.
A little bit bigger. The thing is still minute.
It's a little teeny.
Excuse me.
Now when you're using do a little bit bigger on either side before I walk, because you don't want to run out of paint. Does that make sense? Y'all aren't answering.
Yes.
See? And I'm just gonna walk it down from here.
Okay.
Just look at Surratt. Well, there you go. Thought of that.
I'm just going around. Edge. So if you dot down on the edge of one of these, it looks more like a flower, which would be what I've done here. So I put it on the edge. All these are done on the edge, whereas this is done directly on top. So it's just a different way to do it. So if I wanted to, like for this, let's do this. I'll turn it where y'all can see it too. So you still want to line it up. Right here. You're going to line it up because you want it right about there. So you see how I did that? It's a little bit bigger. Oh, I'm dipping that. Did y'all see where I did that?
This is going to affect your.
Remember, Gray, only you would know the difference.
Well,
we all think it's.
Well, no, I'm just saying that it would be easier because I'm having to be really careful how big I make that dot. But you're just gonna dot right on the edge.